Well,
I don't think you'll have a shock.
Then I'll get an axe and I'll just chop off his. No, I wouldn't do that. I'm not that mean. If it's in
the
danger.
trunks, the tusks.
If it was endangered, I wouldn't do that. But if it wasn't, I would kind of.
Okay, so what does this have to do with?
We're talking about the games.
Oh, the games. Okay.
And I was like, if elephant was in there, I would chop it down. But if they put a panda, I would chop it down anyway.
Okay.
I didn't even discover pandas.
So let's move. Let's move.
Actually,
our
they did.
Yeah, because at that time.
It didn't have
I
any
am indeed a
access
king.
to- or no, myself.
For I know how to rule. I do. I know how to rule.
Alright, come on.
Oh, myself. I actually forgot that.
Okay. Alright, so let's turn our attention back to the Celts. So we said they were pretty barbaric.
They like burning down houses and chopping down.
Wrong.
Why do I keep saying chop? Okay. They're basically, they're mean people. They like
What makes them
When they're
mean?
angry.
when they're angry, they go to war and they just like.
Pretty ruthless.
Yep.
Okay, what else?
It's actually pretty descriptive.
Yeah. Very well done.
I'm so stupid sometimes.
What?
No, not like that, but it's like.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay. Alright. What else can we remember about the early Celts,
They don't have any.
Anglo-Saxons?
They don't have any table manners.
Not really.
I bet you they're like they'll just go.
Exactly.
That's also pretty descriptive.
You kind of get into when you're talking. You just gotta like.
What kind of warriors were they? Other than the
Brave-hearted.
Brave-hearted?
Like Braveheart. Oh.
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 No, I'm just joking. I don't want to talk to you.
Okay. So, so who remembers anything about when Christianity came to the Celts? What do you remember about that time?
Oh wait, wait.
The Anglo-Saxons and the Celts.
I'm pretty sure they weren't very happy at the beginning of that.
Do you remember who was instrumental in bringing Christianity there?
Justin.
No.
No, I didn't say
That's
anything. I
Constantine.
didn't say anything.
For some reason, it's like a really obvious name. And I should
Jesus.
know this.
He brains.
He was instrumental. That is true. Augustine, right? Were you thinking Augustine?
I couldn't, for some reason, I was thinking
Augustine?
like
It's that monk guy.
Yeah.
And he's
Monks
bald.
are the ones who did that. That was their job.
That was also Pope Gregory
Oh yeah.
when he saw that.
They were bald and they went around spreading the gospel with their bald heads.
Josiah.
I'm sorry.
That's rude.
Well,
To say it that way.
what do you mean?
I
I'll
love
be
you.
proud to have a bald head. And not shaving this off. Don't get me angry.
Okay. All right. So let's So Beowulf was written around 700 to 750 AD. So right
Actually, no. It's 1998.
that edition was
So it's from the
printed
classic.
in 1998. I love
Oh, it says. Oh yeah.
And it was written. It's a story about a pagan warrior in a pagan culture,
I read it.
written by a Christian monk to Christians.
Is this a true story? Beowulf is actually a real person.
It might be inspired by a true story. Nobody really knows. So.
Yeah.
I don't know who wrote
This book was not written. It was part of the oral tradition. What do you guys know about oral tradition?
Oh, I know. You told me you read this about us. There are these people that they would tell these stories and they would go around telling stories and spreading it.
Yeah.
Story time around a campfire.
Very good, Josiah.
3
Rebecca?
words.
That's kind of one of the things, and I know this is kind of a little bit off topic, but that's how like some people believe the Bible is inaccurate, like when they try to counteract, because they say it's kind of like the telephone effect. After a while, the story gets a little distorted.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't believe that because I believe the Bible is like
Yeah.
what God wrote. But I think like we never really know what the original Beowulf was like,
Mhm.
which is kind of
They
frustrating.
even say that in the like at the end of the story, they'll say like it's like they see personally if he was real and he was that strong, that would be like Superman crap.
Mhm.
But I know that
But yeah,
ogre thing's not real.
Randall.
They called him an ogre in the kids version, so we'll say ogre.
Kind of ogre-like, I guess.
He is a well.
So
look at his face.
you were making a connection. You were making a connection
Okay.
with that idea and the oral tradition. What were you?
So I mean, some people will tell fake stories, but this story is kind of realistic. But I think they would like. It sounds kind of realistic, except the parts when the witches and stuff came in. I mean, there was witches back then, but
And
they
there
were
still are today.
Yeah.
It could be like
I know. I'm not like they say in this. Like they can actually like shoot magic out with their staffs. Like that's not realism. That's
Okay.
this
So Garrett, then Rebecca.
Oh.
Yeah, his hand up. Oh, you weren't done. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. So you're still making. Okay.
yeah. So no, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Garrett.
There's actually proof that the Bible is real because Exodus, the story about Moses parting the sea,
Mhm.
they actually found remnants of an Egyptian army under the sea.
Wow.
How-
That's pretty.
Twice.
How would you know? So they really literally
That's
went to the
cool.
bottom of the sea and got stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
That or was
wasn't,
washed
like,
up on shore
part of
or
it-
sea lowered or something.
yeah, like the sea.
You know how cool that would be to see a sea just go like this?
Sounds so cool. But actually, I'm pretty sure, like in some history books, it does say about how the armies went into the ocean, like in some form of context, because I've seen that in like.
Okay.
But anyways,
So.
if it was a true story, it could have just been exaggerated over time,
Mhm.
and so it could be mostly true, except for like certain things. Someone said, and then the witch like pointed at them and said these words, and then the witch pointed at them and magic sprouted from her fingers.
Yeah,
and,
that's
like,
what I meant.
went and like I don't know, like so
Like there are.
no, you can go ahead.
Oh, like there are witches, but like she said, they're not witches where you just go
Mhm.
abracadabra.
I'm pretty sure that once my dad was in Haiti and he said something about how he was cursed.
We'll let that be a lunchtime conversation.
But
Let's try to keep it on topic. Okay.
but oh dang! I was about to say like
the Bible.
it'd be
Yeah.
cool if you actually
Well, everything's
found
kind of integrated, so it's easy to
I
go
mean-
rabbit trail in.
any. I don't like. Is it like the island that they? If this story was actually true, like Beowulf, they
So-
would be naming like you know how they like.
Mhm. So what are you? Can I interrupt you for a second? So what are you wrestling with right now? Are you trying to figure out if this is a true story, or are you trying to understand how it's changed over time
Yeah, over
through the oral tradition?
Like,
Is that why
yeah,
you're going
because-
in this direction?
the original story is way different than now.
I probably, since it is oral tradition, like Rebecca said, what the poet first spoke out, the monk. You know,
The
it's said
first-
to be a monk. We don't know for certain that it was, but most likely it was.
If
It definitely would have changed over time, so we can say that.
because back then, if it actually now you can like what I'm trying to say is it would they exaggerate stuff now. They'll make a book and exaggerate it. Like it might have been about Grendel. I don't know, but they never found unless I'm wrong, they never found the original copy. Like
Well,
the first.
The original copy was spoken,
Oh.
so there was no way to find a first
And
original
they never
copy.
found the person because he died.
Right.
Basically.
Well,
a long time.
Yeah.
A long time ago. What we can know is that it was a Christian poet, probably a monk, who first spoke these words, and they passed it down.
And then they put it on book. And then
And at some point, it was written
by
down.
the time they put it on book, I bet you I already know they exaggerated it for kids, but then
Well, hold on to that. Yes, Rebecca?
Well, I was also gonna say if it was like, I'm not sure, but it was in a different language. Right?
Yes.
So then some translations could be like different than the original meaning. So if they translate it and then the words might not be, they might be a little more leaning towards like the, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this, like unrealistic, like instead of saying bam, it could be like could've, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
bigger, and so
Well, that's a common problem of translation.
like if they put it, you know how Latin, like you translate it and it's in the wrong, like it's in the wrong order, like it could have been in any language.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
once they write it down, they would have to switch up words,
Yeah.
make it like understandable.
Okay.
And
Yes.
like translating the Korean and English, Korean is completely different, and like there are words that mean similar things, but there aren't words that mean exactly words in English. Those are two completely different languages. So
That would be
that's
really
another
hard.
thing that could have happened.
Yeah. Yes, Garrett?
I was just thinking about an example of that, like an idea that could have happened, but I have no proof at all.
Okay.
Maybe instead of tearing off Grendel's arm, the original could have been maybe he had chopped off his arm with an axe, and then it changed to a sword because everyone knows that it's harder to chop something with a sword than it is an axe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And then it probably changed to ripping his arm off with his bare hands.
So
I
those
know
are things.
some.
Hold on one second.
It's like a possibility.
It's a possibility. And so those are some of the questions you can also be asking yourself as we read.
And
So I don't.
I'm just talking about this, like.
I know, but we need to. While I wish we could spend hours
What time
letting
is
this conversation go wherever we want it to go, we do have to have some order, and there's certain things I wanted to tell you guys about and to talk. So there's a few more things we need to talk about. Okay, so those are great thoughts, and definitely keep all of those in mind as we continue on. Okay, so one of the things to remember, we talked about the culture of the Anglo-Saxons. They were very barbaric, they were very pagan. In fact, in this book, there's lots of talk about pagan rituals, sacrificing to idols,
Pagan?
observing
What's pagan?
omens. Pagan means totally not Christian, but to the extreme. Like they're practicing they're
Witchcraft.
witchcraft. Paganism is identified as
Like human sacrifices.
human sacrificing.
I know what you mean.
There was
Like
some-
You know,
witches.
I realize I've never looked up a definition
Like
of
witches and
paganism.
stuff.
But wasn't
It's
someone
not
in
Christian.
the Bible,
It's definitely not Christian. Sorry.
like I'm trying to think. It might be a different thing that I'm just like.
I think
thinking of, but like there was like
It's more to the line of witches.
who was
yes, that's true.
I don't know, probably not.
But say it. Go ahead.
But like someone, like in the story of Esther, maybe
Mm-hmm.
the other son married someone who was, or like Esther was like not pagan, but like something similar to that. Like she was like something, I don't know.
Persian.
Maybe
Well,
she was.
Esther was Hebrew, but she married.
No, not Esther. Ruth. I don't know. I said Esther.
Oh, she
I know
was a
what you're talking about.
Moabitess.
Moabitess. I don't know. I thought she was. Pagan.
She was a pagan. I mean,
I thought Ruth was a good person.
the
Like, not like
She
Moabites.
that.
was.
Well, they were a defiled, unclean nation because it was founded on a father and a daughter kind of
okay,
thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's what the Moabite nation was considered unclean to the Hebrew people, which is why they. But that's off topic. Okay.
Yeah.
So I need to look up that exact definition of paganism, but mostly it's associated with the occult, witchcraft, divinations, and that sort of thing. Yes, sir.
Perfect example. The Egyptians.
Yes. Yeah.
Were Egyptians did human sacrifices?
Not human sacrifices.
That's what.
Aztecs did, or
Well, animals. I mean, sacrificing to idols can be human or animal.
But animals, Jesus did. They did sacrifice with animals.
But when
To the
to
one real
idols,
God.
Oh, they're
not
doing.
to idols.
So they're doing.
They're
Oh, that's
sacrificing it to
nasty.
these pretend gods that don't even exist. I mean, that's what the Greeks and Romans did to Zeus and Aphrodite.
I'm talking about like human sacrifices. That's like
Aztecs, I think.
Aztecs.
There are cultures who did that as well.
It was the
Aztecs,
Aztecs or someone
Amazon.
similar.
No, it was Aztecs.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
somewhere in the jungle they do that.
Yeah.
Maya.
So
Yeah, the Aztecs lived in the
we're
jungle.
getting the
Yeah.
sense that these are pretty horrific things.
That's nasty.
So also they would observing omens and burning of the dead and the working of fate. The
Burning
working
of the dead.
Okay, I looked
Yeah,
it up.
turning
Okay.
to ashes.
So
What do you mean?
paganism encompasses a diverse
Oh,
community.
okay, hold on one second.
Burning.
Go ahead.
Okay. Paganism encompasses a diverse community with some groups concentrating on specific traditions, practices, or elements such as occult.
Occult. The occult? Like
No,
OCC?
ecology, I think. Witchcraft, Celtic traditions, or certain gods.
Celtic.
That's a lot of big words.
Okay. So basically, we've been describing paganism, and
What's
that's also the
burning of the
definition.
ash?
Burning of the dead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, what
So,
was
I
it?
mean, the Greeks did that.
They burn people.
Well,
Mhm.
When they're dead.
cremation.
We cremate
It's
people.
almost like burying someone and putting them in
But
a
it was
tomb.
a pagan ritual. They did like certain practices when they
Oh.
did it.
There's some
Example.
movies in that Avatar movie. They burn the guy in the box.
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings did something very similar. They would put their warriors in a boat and then send the boat off and shoot it with
Everybody.
flaming arrows.
Mm-hmm.
That's
But that's
similar.
like, but that's not a pagan. That's like sending them off in a.
Well, it's a pagan
Ritual.
ritual because they believe
in,
the gods are going to. I don't
not
know.
Vikings.
It's like
There's
their way of burial.
It's their way of burying people. It's not. Well,
some
some
of
people.
them are
yeah.
connected with
Yeah.
ritualistic practices
Yeah.
that are unchristian.
Mhm.
Some aren't, but I guess I haven't studied it enough to know for certain.
I'm talking so fast.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I was just, I don't know. I was just like agreeing and like
Yeah.
talking, and I'm really tired, so I'm like saying
Yeah.
words, just like, yeah, but they're not.
Sometimes I'll say stuff
That's fine.
and it's not keeping up with my brain.
So the other thing you'll see a lot is on the idea of working of fate. And anyone who's read the Iliad and the Odyssey, this is very common in there. They're always talking about the fates and what is, and so this idea of fate is a huge idea. And so you'll see this throughout the text as well.
You mean fate like believing or like
Fate, not faith, fate.
Oh.
F-A-T-E.
like your fate, like you're going to die?
It's like
Yeah.
destiny.
Yeah,
fate,
that's fine.
But
destiny.
then there was the Greeks and the Romans believed that, and you'll see it in here. It's capitalized the word fate, and so highlight it in pink when you see it, because they communicate the idea of fate as though it is a person, it's an entity, it's this bigger thing than just an adjective or a smaller noun. It's more of a bigger noun.
We have to do what we did in the other books, like all the names. There's
Definitely.
a lot of names in this book.
It is, but it's not as much. It's shorter.
So basically,
You're
this-
only reading 12 pages this week, by the way. But let's say,
What? I have a question.
well,
Just one question.
Hmm?
Just one question.
yes.
This is the version, Grendel's version.
They're not
Goodness.
different versions, they're two different books. But
It's his version of the story.
I'm going to answer that question, but in a minute, okay?
Wait.
Alright, so all of this is going on, all these pagan practices. This is what the Celts, this is what the Anglo-Saxons are all about. That's their life. They're vicious, they're barbarians, they're sacrificing the idols. All these pagan practices. It's kind of creepy, kind of crazy, like all of you have described, and I think we've all felt in this discussion. This is the scene that is in play when Christianity comes to the Anglo-Saxons. They're converted. And so one generation after the initial conversion of the Anglo-Saxons is when Beowulf was spoken out, written orally, however you want to say it. And so for some reason, this monk, I'm going to assume that it's a monk, decided that he needed to write a poem about pagan practices to this ex-pagan culture. But why would he do that? Some people have argued that there is that he's confusing Christianity with pagan practices, or trying to glorify paganism or the pre-Christian culture in Anglo-Saxon and of the Anglo-Saxon people. But we want to know, or he could have been doing something entirely different. Tolkien definitely believes he was completely aware of what he was doing, and it was not to glorify paganism. And so one question that I want us to wrestle with is, what is the poet trying to do? What is his purpose? Why is he writing this story of pagan practices to this Christian audience?
Question.
Yes.
They don't do any human sacrifices or pagan stuff in this.
They do. They sacrifice to idols in here.
I read it.
Well,
Human
you read
sacrifices.
the children's version.
Joe.
And just because we
I get you. Yeah.
and also remember that anytime you just read something the first time doesn't mean you know everything about the book. And I don't mean this in a negative way. I really don't.
Okay.
We have a tendency as humans to say, "Oh, I got that now. I read it." But the things that make a classic is that their depth is just incredible, and we can read them over and over again for the rest of our lives and still discover more about them. So don't expect to get everything the first time anyway. So we want to concern ourselves with the purposes of the poet. What was he trying to do? Why would he do this? This is a new Christian culture. In fact, people listening to this would have remembered living in the midst of their pagan culture. There would have been some of the oldest people that was listening to this poem for the first time would have remembered doing all these pagan things, then being converted to Christianity, and now living this new way. So they're very aware of all this. Yes, sir.
Two things. First one, what you just said, maybe it helps the Christians understand how Christianity helps them and gives them like a better life than they had or would have otherwise.
Could be.
And just because it's a pagan sacrifice does not mean it's human sacrifice.
That
will sacrifice animals to idols, and that's still pagan.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
They just like sacrifice. Like, is there certain animals you have to sacrifice? Like, do they just sacrifice a horse and then just like?
Depends on the tradition.
Usually cows, I think.
Usually cows.
Dude, I would save a cow to eat it instead of sacrificing it.
Not if you were talking.
All right, let's focus. Focus.
I'm sorry, I'm
Focus.
hungry and it's almost lunch.
And he wants to eat the cow.
Okay, so let's be thinking about some of those questions. Why did the poet do this? What is it about the story? I mean, this is a monk. He is a devoted Christian, and he's leading a group of new Christians who are coming out of paganism. One of the leaders of, I'm assuming.
Oh,
So let's keep that in mind.
Can I tell?
Yes.
Maybe they maybe he did that like, cause like if they turn Christian, and they're like used to being Christian and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he made this book for like, they look back and they're like, how did like, so they teach people how wrong it is, like, you know what I mean?
Could be.
Like teaching, sort of. I don't know.
We'll have those are questions we'll have to keep in our mind. That it could be. We'll have to see as we read. Okay, so I think we've all awakened ourselves to the possibilities of this book and kind of the background. So now there's a few things you need to know about this book to kind of approach it with a little more understanding. There's two traditions or practices that we need to understand in order to get this poem a little bit more. And
Poem?
I hope this is a poem. It's a poem.
It's a very, very long
It's a long
It doesn't sound like a poem when you read
It's
it.
an epic poem.
Epic?
Like the Iliad and the Odyssey are also considered poems. There's different types of poetry. And
They do rhyme sometimes, but
yeah, not all poems have to rhyme. There's different types of poetry.
Oh.
And I can actually we can talk about that a little bit later. So there's an idea. It's called, and I think I'm pronouncing this right. I need to print out a pronunciation guide just to make sure. But there's an Anglo-Saxon concept called comitatus. Comitatus. I'll write it on the board.
My book is in 2 different languages. English
Yeah. that you have the original language there.
What's this language?
It's the Anglo-Saxon language of that time. It's very closely associated with German.
Okay.
Honkraffer.
Okay, so this term, this is an Anglo-Saxon,
Come te amos.
Comitatus. That's what I'm called.
And actually, if you want to read more about this, I learned about this. My friend wrote an article, and it's on the Circe blog, and I can email it to you guys if you want to read all of it for yourself. It's not entirely long, but it's really good information.
I use the vacuum.
No, just wait. All right, and then there's another concept called Weird Guild. Okay, comitatus is all about the relationship between a king and his subjects. And the way you know a king is good is how he relates to this ideal. This ideal is where the king gives gifts in exchange for the loyalty of his people.
That.
Yeah.
I remember.
And they spend a lot of time, the poet spends a lot of time making sure you know the king is a good king because he gives gifts. And so then the people are loyal by fighting for the king, and killing the king's enemies. Then the cycle continues, and the king then gives gifts to the people. Of course, these gifts are the plunder and the stolen goods from the enemies that they've defeated. And then the people who are loyal to him then kill more enemies, and more stolen goods are given to them. So it's this cycle of theft and murder, and that is what the whole basis of the Anglo-Saxon culture is built on. This theft and murder, this concept right here.
Well,
and that's the basis of the relationship between the king and his subjects.
what I thought, I didn't know that. I thought, like, when they made it seem like they went conquered countries and they had to kill who they killed, but they didn't go around killing everybody on purpose, did they?
No, that's not. I'm saying they were trying to conquer countries. Exactly.
Okay. I
They
thought
would
you
just
meant like
steal the gold and value.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when they would conquer, when they would,
they would steal all the gold in the palaces and whatever.
right, and
But if they conquered it, it's kind of theirs. So was that how rules are? Like you can go up. Like is it now? Like you can go up and like if you beat someone in war, they can conquer. Basically.
that's an
You're
interesting
not really
subject.
supposed to anymore. They kind of have allies now, and the other allies would get mad at you.
Those are good questions, actually. Questions about the nature of war. What is war? What is just war? Because there's unjust war, where somebody's just a tyrant and just wants everything. So he goes, takes over, and
I can
you know.
explain those. In unjust
Well,
world.
hold on. I want, right now, I want to present the questions. Today is all about filling ourselves up with a lot of questions and background information and keeping those ideas simmering. So as we read, the book comes alive a little bit more. Okay? Let me check that. Okay. And then after I get through these last few points, then we can begin discussing some of your ideas, okay? All right, so some of the, keep those in mind, Josiah. Questions about war. What is just war? What are just actions after war? So in terms of plunder and that sort of thing. So those are all great questions. You can keep those in mind. Okay, so this is the cycle, and this is the foundation of the culture. The next concept is Weird Guild. One of the other things that was just part of the fiber of the Anglo-Saxon culture was this idea of blood vengeance. If somebody killed your brother.
Oh, it's like, what's that movie you watched? Oh, Romeo and Juliet. Guy killed his brother, cousin, and if the prince told him not to, but if he didn't, he has the right to go and kill him. basically.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
Yes,
I know
that's
about
exactly it. That.
Except that didn't happen too much, and
Yeah.
the prince wanted to deal with it
That's
himself.
why.
So what? Tell me about. This is perfect. Tell me about what was happening. Like, what are the problems that came up because of that?
So
Talk to me about it.
basically, Romeo,
Mhm.
he came up, and basically his cousin was drunk.
Mhm.
What was his cousin's name?
Just an idiot.
No, what was his cousin's
Mercutio.
name? Yeah, Mercutio. He was this idiot, and so he challenged the other
Yeah.
guy to the duel.
Mhm.
Okay, he didn't mean to stab him. Actually, he wasn't trying. Like the other guy wasn't trying to stab him. What was it?
It was an accident, and he got killed.
It was an accident and then guy stabbed him. Romeo saw it. He's not really the best sword fighter, so he just went up and went after him. He ended up killing him. Romeo killed the guy,
So,
but he was allowed to. But the prince said it happened so much that the prince wanted to deal with it himself. So the prince banned it from them to do it. But if the prince didn't say that, well, Romeo didn't anyway. But if the prince didn't say that, that's a normal rule. If someone kills your brother or cousin, anybody in your family, you have the right to go kill them.
Mhm. And
But
the Anglo-Saxons believe the same thing.
but then he got banned from their
Yeah,
banish.
just more drama and drama. One killed the other, then they have to keep killing and killing
Personally,
and
if someone
killing
killed
and
my
killing.
family, I would go after them, not kill them. I'd just like, kill my family, I'm gonna slap you.
You would slap someone after someone killed your whole
Not
family.
really. I'm not gonna say
knock
what
him
I'm
out,
gonna
stuff
do.
him in the trunk of your car, take him to the police station, or just
No, stuff them in the
If
car.
someone killed my family, I would do more than just slap them.
I am not going to tell you what I would do because I would not mentally depressed, but I would mentally just go crazy on them.
what about physically?
I meant to say physically, not mentally. So
You can't hurt someone with your thoughts unless you say your thoughts.
No.
Or stand in
no, physically and no, I'm just not going to say what I was going to do. I'll like open the back of my trunk and it would fall out and maybe fall off a cliff.
Oh
I'm
my gosh. Okay.
not saying.
So, what do you think of this? I mean, is this kind of like a vicious cycle? This idea of blood vengeance?
No.
Yes.
Well, wait, you just described it as a vicious cycle, didn't you? With Romeo and Juliet? Somebody was killing somebody, then they killed somebody, then
It's not a vicious cycle because
It's so a vicious cycle. They keep on killing each other.
If they killed them and then
then my
people
family goes.
like, okay, if there's one family and someone from another family kills someone in that family, and someone in the original family will go over and kill someone from the other family,
Yeah, that's
and then
good.
the other family will go kill from
But
that
you know what's
other
funny?
family again,
Is that
and back and forth.
if that vicious cycle happened to me, I am not die. If someone kills me, tries to kill me, I'm gonna chop off their head. I'm like, gosh! And now that we have guns, it's easier. So someone breaks a sword.
It's also really easy to get shot in the back.
No one's gonna shoot me in the back. I'm gonna hit that matrix. I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
I haven't seen the movie. I want to see the movie, but
I have all of them. If you're allowed to see them.
talk to my dad sometime.
I just hit the.
Okay.
I seriously doubt that.
So, the Anglo-Saxons were also aware of this vicious cycle, that this was kind of crazy. And so they came up with this concept of weird guilt. And this gives you a way, gave somebody a way out of the blood vengeance cycle. What they could do is that if you killed someone, or if one of your family members was killed, if you killed someone else's family member, you could go to the next of kin to the person you killed. So if I killed your brother, and I could come to you, and I could offer you payment, rather than
Payments.
I could offer you
that's
some sort
horrible.
of payment, gold, money.
Bribe them into not killing
Yeah, it,
the
it
family.
could end up being worth it. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe you would just chop off my head.
Personally, if someone said, "Oh, I will pay you for I killed your brother," I'd be like,
have a brother.
But there was
Anyway.
the thing was, stay with me. There was this new rule that I could go to this next of kin and say, can I pay this debt? Can we resolve this? It was a way out because you had a moral. I mean, if you were an Anglo-Saxon and somebody killed your brother, you had a moral responsibility to go and kill the person who killed your brother. It was kind of like an expectation. You kind of had to do it.
Yeah.
And so this is a way out.
Sorry.
Not everyone wants to go, and maybe not everyone wants to go kill someone else. I don't know. But this was a way out. So this concept was a way out of the cycle. So he could pay, and it was called the blood price. So he could
Blood price.
pay a blood price. Okay. So
My legs are too long for this.
Stop hurting yourself.
My legs are too long.
Okay. And so the audience that this poem was written for and to, spoken to, they were aware of all of this. This was a part of their culture. They were aware of these things, and they were in their minds.
I'd be scared if that was my culture. And it still actually is a part of our culture.
Tell me about that.
You know how Romeo, basically, the people that mostly did that were gangs. They were like gangs with swords, but now they're like
Families.
no.
Big families. I have a family that's actually kind of similar to that.
Well,
Wait, you
that's the root.
well, let me
of
tell you,
things,
let me tell you.
families.
Let me tell you, when we were watching the movie, there'd basically be big families, but the kids would be like in not sort of a gang, but they would, you know what I mean? Like, but now, if you see a gang member go up and kill another person's gonna come up from that gang, kill you. Another person's gonna come up and kill it. Like, it still happens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it's not as. It's more vicious now because it's like we have
guns.
We have guns that will like
And grenades.
and bombs and rocket. We have bats. Yeah, all sorts
They
of.
had Grendel.
Mom, but Grendel was a bad guy. He didn't really side with
They
the
had
good guy.
Beowulf.
We have a chainsaw.
Yeah, Beowulf was like a gun. He tore his arm off of an ogre. Like,
Yeah.
like,
I doubt that. I question this.
he grabbed it and he walked. He didn't
Yeah,
really
I
tear
know
it
how
off.
our story goes.
He didn't
but I
tear it
question
off.
if
He
it's
just
real.
walked away. Grendel walked away and he didn't pull it off. He just went like this. He just held it, and then Grendel pulled it off himself. He just went like. Personally, I would be scared if my arm fell off and got nailed to a wall.
My feet are not gonna fall off. They're so cold.
I have the
Your feet
heater
are
on
cold?
as hot as it can. Do you want to go sit by the heater?
How are your feet cold?
I don't know.
I'm wearing
You can pull this chair.
slides.
I'm wearing socks.
I'm
Okay.
never cold.
So
Rarely.
I want you.
I
Let's
attract
come up
heat.
with as many questions based on everything we've talked about. We've already come up with some. We can come up with ideas and questions that we can be asking ourselves throughout this book. So we have the idea of war. What is just war? What are just actions after war? We also talked about what is fate. Whoa,
What?
that is spelled wrong. Just kidding.
What is
Fate.
what is just
What is justice?
justice?
What is justice? That's a great question. What is justice?
What is Grendel?
Okay.
What is food? Literally, what is it? Is it like a? Don't listen to me. That was. I think I should get kicked.
He's hungry.
He's hungry.
But
Okay.
hungry.
No.
What else?
What is weapons? Weapons like.
Swords, axes.
Okay,
spear.
so-
You don't
We
get
know
what I'm
that.
saying.
Do you mean like what is the just use of them, or do you mean
Yeah.
really
What
are they?
is the? I will talk about this at lunch with you and Garrett.
Okay, so
You don't get. I'll talk
What?
about it later.
is the
You little.
hey?
I didn't say anything. I just said little. Everybody's little compared
Okay,
to
so
me,
what ideas do you see in this idea of blood vengeance and the blood price?
I think the blood price is just a horrible way of repaying. I mean, someone kills your family and you get asked to get paid back. What do you think about that? What would you say? Would you say yes, or would you just be like, can't really pay?
Maybe.
Like, if Devin got killed.
in the first place.
If someone came up and tried to pay you
Why
for
does anyone
that,
kill anyone?
like if someone killed like my sister, they came up and they were like, oh, if I can repay, I'm not gonna accept that because that's just plain out like, oh, the person that killed my sister is in front of me.
It's not like stolen merchandise. It's like a life, and I don't think
Say that again and tell me more what you mean by that.
like. It's not like if someone
Life.
stole your TV and was like, "Hey, look, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I stole
there
your
you go.
TV. I'll give you $3,000 for it." It's not like that. It's a life. It's not. You can't put a price tag.
I
on
love-
someone's life.
I love what Garrett said. Garrett,
Life is priceless.
yes, you can't buy life unless God
You can't at all. It's,
can buy life, but
no, he makes it.
I saw
Exactly.
This, like
He is.
study kind of.
preach it.
The chances of like us being alive, not like through evolution, just that we are like that our grandparents and that our parents and that everyone survived to have the children. It's like 1 in a billion, million, trillion, like for
You
us
can't
to be
put a
alive.
price on a person.
No matter how small.
Oh, Horton here's a hoot. That's the stuff.
It's a hoot, not a hoot.
I said a hoot. Wait, it's a.
It's a hoot.
Oh! You know,
Like a hoot and holler. Like no.
I feel. No.
Okay. Another
Keep
question.
moving
So we have
closer to the door.
vengeance. Why
Yeah,
does
exactly.
So we have the idea of vengeance. Why does anyone kill anyone? Can you put a price on a life? What is the value of man?
Justice. Justice.
We have that.
People use justice wrongly today.
Sometimes.
Robbers.
Mm-hmm.
No, okay. Let me think about this. I'm gonna use this. Like, you know how superheroes say it's like, no. You know how cops say it's just.
Mm-hmm.
If someone,
Yeah, some people just have messed up ideas of how it works.
yes. So like, say like a guy, like some police officers. I've heard of a story. I forgot this guy. There's a guy. He didn't pull out a gun. The cop just saw him. He was holding a gun, but he never pulled it out. The cop shot him. Okay, the cop said it was justice. It's really not, because if the guy,
He was armed,
but he
was
had
not
the
using
permit
it.
though. He could carry it around.
Yeah, but
You're
he
supposed
was.
to
Well, I
keep
was
it.
saying is, I was agreeing.
It was in his pants.
Because even though he was armed, he wasn't.
Yeah, he
using
didn't go
his
like
arm.
this.
Like he's
like
was
that.
his hand even on the gun? Did
He was
know?
going like this, and he was talking, and like, it was like that, and then the cop said it was justice. I shot him because he reached for the gun. All right. People have a messed up idea of how justice works. I think justice basically is like when someone robs a place, you be like fair, not like, oh, you cut a head off like they used to. Like, you put them in jail for a good amount of time. Like, if someone goes robs a bank, you put them in jail. Not like, because I don't think cops should carry around guns. I'm just saying, unless they're going into like a gunfight, because half of the time they don't use it, and they just use it to like
I think
scare people.
I think they should carry around like like
That's what they
kinda
do.
like well I mean yeah, but like tranquilizers almost, so that if there's someone who's armed, they could just
See,
shoot them like so.
You know what the funny thing is? The SWAT team does that. The SWAT team does it.
Future of America in here.
No, but like the SWAT team does it, but then the police officers carry around real guns. And I'm like,
We should-
I'm going too deep.
Well, Garrett had his hand up before you started talking, so I want to give him.
You know, I'm getting.
This is a
I
great-
remember all this stuff from when we went to that Challenge 3 thing. I remember. I'm saying I remember all your Challenge 3 students. They were talking about gun weapons and stuff, and I tried to talk, and they're like, "What are you saying, Josiah?" I was like, "I'm just gonna listen, you know. I'm not gonna say anything."
A lot of time that perfectly describes it.
There's a time to speak and a time to listen. Yes, Garrett, what were you gonna say?
A Hebrew rule or law. I'm not sure if it's still active today, but if you stole something from someone, you have to repay it 7 times.
That is that's the guy in Justinian.
Yeah,
Justinian's code made that law.
but it
Put
was
it down on the law.
It was 4 times in the Justinian Code.
I made that law. I teleported back. This is when I was a kid. I
don't believe you.
Okay,
I will show you my
another
teleporter.
For I am indeed a king.
I know how to rule myself.
Or I know how to rule myself.
So another question that I thought while you guys were talking is, or what are examples of true justice? So we can be thinking of that. Okay, so what other questions come to mind as we think about? No, thank you. As we think about the Anglo-Saxons, their culture, their conversion to Christianity, their ideas and customs.
My thoughts are becoming like Josiah's. What kind of food did they have, and when will we have food?
See, food comes in handy.
Okay, so I think we have a lot of good questions.
Food is
then.
important.
I don't want to
You
exhaust
cannot
guys.
survive without food.
Or
Okay.
water.